And good morning and welcome to the Forum on a Monday. Charles Seraphim here with you. The following forum is a paid broadcast. Views and opinions expressed by our guests on the broadcast are theirs. Imagine that. And do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the host, the station, or its owner. You know, I was thinking, what if you had guests that came on and expressed just other people's opinions and never let you know what they were really thinking themselves? Kmog is exempt from any liability that should arise from the broadcast, and the legal department has us say that, but I don't think there'll be any liabilities this morning. Hope not. Our sponsors: Sunshine Cleaning and Restoration, Choice Auto and Truck, Pinnacle Propane, Hospitality Wireless, Dan Good Flooring, Dana Law Group, and Holiday Cruises and Tours. And there we go. I think my
an interesting week.
Yeah.
In today's announcement about the vaccine, should have been made 3 weeks ago. I'm sure that would have changed the election results. But as you remember, the Democrats argued and lied and complained that the Trump campaign, the Trump administration, mismanaged the pandemic, when in fact he has been more successful in managing that than any previous, including the Biden-Obama administration, who waited 6 months before they declared a national emergency. They voted the most successful president out of office, who is Operation Warp Speed, created the fastest vaccine ever created for a pandemic, and they threw the man out that's saving their lives. That kind of hurts.
Well, is it over? Is this election over? Do we have final results? Even though Germany and France and England have all called to congratulate the president-elect, as it were, there's still legal challenges, and there are some real concerns about Pennsylvania and a lot of electoral votes.
Yeah, we'll get to that, but right off the bat, there's 6-8 states whose governors initiated executive orders to alter election law. They said we're just going to do mass mailings that they've never done before, totally out of control. They bypassed the legislature, and the U.S. Constitution clearly defines that it is the state legislatures that can only change election law. So therefore, from my view, every one of these states that did that through executive orders, it's an invalid election. The whole election for that state needs to be thrown out and restarted in a proper manner.
And Mr. Chairman, that's not a matter of controversy either. The text in the Constitution is bright and clear, as the lawyers like to say.
Yep.
So do we have a constitutional crisis? Are we living in a constitutional crisis period right now?
We'll have to see how that evolves. I would say it's leaning that way.
I think it'll only become a constitutional crisis if the courts choose not to enforce the clear and bright language of the Constitution.
And do we have any kind of a timetable for when the first of these court hearings is going to be held?
Well, the filing, the Trump campaign's filing is today as we speak. From that point on, I don't know. Formally, officially, there are no official election results, because the individual states have different dates over the next 2 or 3 weeks to validate the election and certify.
So you mean if the networks say that we have a president-elect, that doesn't hold sway? They didn't mention that in the Constitution?
Not mentioned.
Not mentioned, yeah. So, but locally, Arizona did pretty well. The only downside is the loss of McSally to Mark Kelly, who, by the way, is severely compromised for blackmail because of his deep relationships with business in China. So we'll have to watch that. The plus out of this election for Senate is Kelly has to face the final special election in 2 years. So there's an opportunity to find another good candidate. Sally may come back, who knows? But we have another shot fairly quickly to get a Republican senator.
Not to put you on the spot, but a lot of Republicans that I've talked to have said that they didn't think that McSally was a particularly strong candidate.
Well, everybody has their opinions. She was a solid supporter of President Trump while in Senate and had quite a number of successes. So, continuing with the state, Republicans took control of the Corporation Commission. That's the plus for everybody that has utilities. We're known for holding the rates. Democrats are known for increasing the rates. So we're going to have a better future in that regards.
You know, in regard to that, we have a model right next door in the state of California where they have very, very high utility rates, and they also have rolling blackouts. And that is kind of the model of the future, places where the Democrats get control of the equivalent and the state equivalents of the Corporation Commission. So this is really a big deal.
Yeah, it is. The other interesting fact for the Arizona elections, $20 million from outside sources such as Mike Bloomberg and George Soros entered the legislative races for state senator and House seats. $20 million in opposition to Republicans. Wasted money. We only lost one Republican seat in both houses. So for the state of Arizona, we're still a Republican-controlled house.
Even right here in District 6, the Democrats spent, according to the newspaper, the Roundup, if I recall correctly, about $2.5 million in our district. And to give you an example of what we spent, Brenda Barton, who was a successful candidate for the State House of Representatives, according to the newspaper, spent about $50,000. And it's a huge disparity, and it makes you wonder where all this money is coming from and what the benefit is to the people who are spending millions of dollars to affect a rural Arizona State House of Representative races.
We'll have more. Let's take a little break, and when we come back, maybe we can talk a little bit more about that dark money and the impact or the lack of impact that it had, and suggestion for how it might be overcome. We're speaking with Gary Morris, who's the chairman of the Gila County Republican Party, and Andy McKinney, the first vice chair of the Gila County Republican Party, and the forum continues after this. If you want to join us, by the way, 474-2427. It's Monday, November 9th, 2020. You're listening to the Rim Country Forum. Charles Seraphim here with you, along with Gary Morris and Andy McKinney. We had a listener call into the program last week, and he said, we were talking about dark money, and he said the solution is this. This is a proposal, that individuals should be able to contribute as much money as they want, totally unlimited. So George Soros and anyone else, any of the billionaires of the country can contribute any amount of money to any election or ballot proposition, so long as they are registered to vote and live in the district impacted by that thing. So if it was a state race, they would have to live in Arizona. They could contribute $20 million, $50 million to a race, but they'd have to live in Arizona. And if they did it in a district race, they'd have to live in that district in order to contribute to that candidate. What do you think about that idea from a listener? I think it was Richard was his name.
That's swell if we didn't have a constitution that runs afoul of our ability to speak and to write and to have our opinions promulgated. So whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, it's not an idea that we can actually implement.
You could speak a right, you just couldn't contribute cash.
No, the courts have decided long since that contributions are the equivalent of speech.
Okay, let's say good morning to our first caller. Who's on the line? Hey, Robert. Oh, here in Arizona, okay.
Well, the numbers are continuing to change. There's been a reduction in the lead that Biden has in Arizona, but it's like still 16,000 separating. So we just have to watch. The Trump campaign is filing their lawsuits today, and the opposition is started, so we'll see what happens.
And Charlie, getting back to your point, the nexus of the problem of what some people refer to as dark money is they put restrictions on how much of a contribution people could make to the parties. Now, in the olden days, the parties ran things. And now, quite often in any particular situation, you'll find that the parties have a certain amount of money to play with, to use for their elections. But outside of the party structure, there is just a tsunami of money that are in temporary ad hoc groups, the friends of this or the friends of that. And that's where the money goes. The problem isn't the money. The problem is the accountability, and the parties have kind of been excised from the process, and that's another reason why you see such terrible, nasty stuff in the campaigns. Almost all of the nasty business, the worst of the worst that you see are from these the friends of the frogs, or whatever it happens to be. And the solution to that is, and the proper solution is, just to remove the restrictions. I don't know why I, as an individual, should be only allowed to contribute a certain amount of money to a state house election. It doesn't change the amount of money in the election. It just disguises it, because I can give to the Friends of the Frogs in any amount, and that's not accountable, and it's certainly not accountable by the parties. It was a way of reforming the election process, and it didn't turn out to be a good idea, in my opinion.
Yeah, let's review some of the money spent on the District 6 campaign. Wendy Rogers won her Senate race, really crushing victory, 54 to 45%. Democrats in opposition spent $1.1 million opposing her, and she still won. That's record-breaking. Gila County gave Wendy nearly 75% of the vote, and that offset Coconino and Flagstaff, the liberals up there. For the State House, 2 seats, Walt Bracklin was the top vote getter. The Democrat opposition spent nearly $800,000 opposing him. Brenda Barton, little old Brenda, with the least amount of money of all the candidates, but won an election despite $208,000 spent by Democrats opposing her. So that's a lot of money in opposition.
Mr. Chairman, why in the world would the Democrats put $2 million into, or more than $2 million into an election for rural Arizona?
Well, they changed their tactics. They realized that changing gun laws, for example, at the national level has such severe opposition that they see that they can't win it. So their effort is to put money into state legislators where they can begin to erode conservative support and input their, and it's not just the Second Amendment, but their Green New Deal and all that. It's going to be easier to work from bottom up than it is to try to take it head on at the National Congress.
Like they did with local district attorneys in a lot of places.
Yes.
To put a lot of money into those races to get candidates elected who were more lenient.
Yes, and it has worked in many cases. Their state district attorneys have been a target of the Soros organization, and also, as has happened here in Arizona, in different states the title is different, but there's generally an elected person who has control of the elections. In Arizona, it's the Secretary of State. And as we know, we have a Democrat as the Secretary of State in Arizona, and there have been shenanigans pulled under her watch. So,
Mm-hmm.
And yet others still to be revealed.
Back to the dark money, another listener suggested last week that the reason that the Democrats were able to spend $100 million in Kentucky in a losing effort and $100 million in North Carolina in the losing Senate races, both of those races had $100 million of opposition. It was President Trump's fault because he is the one who boosted the economy and created the wealth of Wall Street. So all these rich guys had all this spare cash laying around and they thought they would put it into the political race.
Yeah, that's a stretch. It's interesting.
Let's go back to the phone and say good morning. Who's on the line? Hi, Joe.
hi, Joe. Good. Yeah. Okay, Joe. I'll answer that. It depends on the gap. If the gap between the winners and the losers is narrow enough, it automatically goes to a recount, and that will be picked up by the various states. If it's larger than of an extremely narrow margin, then the challenging party, in this case the Republican Party, will have to pay that. So, go ahead.
And the second one is, all the new people are saying that they don't like to build walls, they like to build bridges. So I'm just wondering what's going to happen to the Trump wall. Is that still going to be built, even though he's not going to be president? Most likely,
boy.
the state's still going to, jobs are still going to come back here. Is the economy still going to be growing? The Democrats, they want a lot of things, they say, but I'm not sure what's going to be done and what they're going to try to take away. I'll just hang up and good show. Thank you.
All right, starting right off the bat is Biden's going to go back to the Paris Accords. He's going to normalize relationships with Iran. He's going to normalize relationships with China. The construction on the border wall ceases. You'll never see a 3.5% unemployment rate with this administration. All those terrific successes that we've seen that's impacted Americans, made their lives better, are going to go away. So in immigration, they're going to move to naturalize all the immigrants, make them citizens. Here you go. That's what votes get.
So we'll have 22 million new voters?
Yes.
Democrat voters.
Yes. If Biden gets his way, absolutely. But I like to focus on the successes we've had here in Gila County.
Yeah. By the way, we've of all the county elected offices, Republicans hold all but 2 right now. The newcomer was Monica taking out the treasurer, and we now have a skilled Republican in the treasurer's office.
Yeah, the previous treasurer, the one that was just deposed, I think has been in office for 24 years, and a political novice Republican has set her aside and taken her position in Gila County. So we're pretty happy about that.
Any truth to the Gila County secession rumors?
No. No. But we have, our Republican sheriff was handily returned. Tim Humphreys was handily returned. Woody Klein handily returned. Truthfully, most of the county level officers were not opposed because Democrats realized that there's no point to it.
They didn't have any qualified candidates.
Well, there's that too.
Yeah.
No.
So don't you feel like you're on an island a little bit sometimes? Seriously, I mean, you look at the voter turnout, you look at the margins, here's a landslide. If this was the microcosm of America, which we like to think that it is, you had a landslide vote here. Your Republican Party was extremely successful across the board.
In District 6.
In District 6.
Also in District 8 that we're partially responsible for too.
Okay. Here we have opposition call, I think. Good morning. Who's on the line?
I also wanted to add to the list of things that might happen. Procreation. Am I saying it right? They think some people are owed, and I've heard where I've seen people say, if you own a house, then you got to give it to somebody else that doesn't have one. Just wondering what you think about that.
You and me.
Well, that doesn't sound like a very good idea to me. That doesn't sound like a way to increase the number of houses for everybody. If you look the various European countries, there are problems with that. There are what they refer to as in France and in Holland particularly, I know about squatters. If you go on a trip in Holland, and you might come back and find an immigrant family living in your apartment, and it's next to impossible to get them out. That's the sort of a thing I think that you're referring to.
Yeah. And as we wait to see what the next steps are with President Trump, I want to note that you don't see Republicans rioting in the cities, in the streets, like the Democrats.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you want to head down to the valley so we can go to Macy's, break into windows, and have a shopping spree? Or
Republicans are the law and order party. The Democrats are a criminal-friendly party. We're going to let the law and the courts determine the future.
Go ahead.
I saw a fellow on TV the other day that was so outraged at the way black people in this nation are treated that he stole a washing machine from Walmart, and he was a white guy expressing his outrage. So there you are.
There you go. We'll have more. We have a caller on the line. We'll get to that and more. If you want to join us, 474-2427. We're talking Republican politics here today on the Rim Country Forum. More after this. It's the Rim Country Forum. It's a Monday. You can always tell when you hit the wrong button, and that makes it a Monday. Let's go back to the phones and say good morning. Who's on the line?
Good morning. This is Rod from Quad. How are you doing?
Hey, all right, buddy.
Hey, two things I wanted to. I'll make a couple of statements, then hang up and listen on the air. One is I think Al Gore thought he was president up until December 10th, 2020. And you guys may have already covered this. I came on the conversation a little late. That was number one. Number two is I'm seeing that a lot of my Facebook friends on the left are calling for unity, group hugs, and all this kind of stuff. It seems like they conveniently forget that for the past 4 years they have been violently, not individually, but tacitly accepting the left absolute rage at Trump winning. And now all of a sudden they're calling for let's all just have a big group hug. It's amazing that they seem to have a forget button in their head that they assume everybody else has.
That's interesting. Interesting, yeah, thank you. It's interesting you should say that because we had a group hug just before we went on the air this morning. Be careful.
Oh, thanks, Ron. I appreciate what you're saying there. And there's no Republican riots. There's nobody burning down the Starbucks. And if you look in the crowds that are supporting Biden, you will find prominently displayed people from Black Lives Matter, which is a Marxist organization, and the Black Panther, the new Black Panther Party, as they call it, which also, oddly enough, is a Marxist organization. And not that I'm calling it a Marxist organization. The leaders of these people say that they are Marxists, and the reason they're doing what they're doing is to facilitate the revolution. The Democrats have used these groups for their own purposes, and it's so appalling and confusing, frankly, when you have a place like Kenosha, Wisconsin, where the city fathers have allowed these groups to destroy their town by pulling off the authorities that ordinarily would be in charge of preventing people from committing mass arson through the downtown sections of their cities. The Democrats are an odd group. But one of the things that we've learned here this time is that the election process needs to be straightened up. It's untidy. When you have, I saw a case this morning just before I came on the air, Charlie, that there was a lady in, I think she was in Philly, someplace in Pennsylvania in any case, who was able to vote for Joe Biden a week after she passed away. And we have that sort of stuff all over the country. The chairman has mentioned the unconstitutional usurpation of the rights of the state legislatures by the half a dozen or so state governors, and that can't be allowed to stand. There's a lot of talk about voter identification in Mexico. I'll just give you an example. In Mexico, we don't think of as a completely up-to-date place, but in Mexico, they've managed to give voter identification to every single voter with their picture on it and with a thumbprint that is keyed into the computer system, so that in Mexico you are doubly identified by your picture and by your thumbprint.
That's racist, though, isn't it?
I
heard it was racist. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't think so. In any case, something like that needs to be done. One of the things that they do, Charlie, is they'll have a busload of voter fraud people. They'll go to a polling place. They'll go in and say that they are somebody that they're not, and vote. Then go get back on the bus, and then go to the next polling place and get out, come in, say that they're somebody else. And if you don't check their IDs, this goes on and on and on and on. That's how we got Al Franken, by the way, as governor, as a senator a few years ago. But it continues. We've had to, right here in Gila County, it's only been by the vigilance of the Republican Party that we've prevented people from other counties from voting in our elections here. Whether or not the Trump campaign is successful in overturning this election, the current results, the lawsuits are going to put a big fat spotlight on all the deficiencies in the system, so that everybody's going to know about it, and there won't be any way to hide this stuff anymore. Do you remember, you're probably not old enough to remember Tammany Hall, the New York City Democrat machine that goes back for 150 years ago. The Democrats...
I vaguely remember. I think I was in my teens, 150 years ago.
But the Democrats have been stealing elections for a very long time, and in all of the Democrat-controlled big cities, New York, Chicago, Baltimore, Oakland, California, there are very well-oiled political machines that turn out as many votes as you would like. You need 3,000 votes to get over the line? Okay, we got them. And so anyway, all that kind of stuff will come to the fore, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully, we'll be able to remedy that. Obviously, the Trump supporters have huge crowds, yard signs everywhere, all across the country, and yet somehow there have been too many votes for the other side. So we'll see what happens.
There are some that would say that's just being a sore loser. Well, your candidate didn't get more votes than the other candidate, and so you're upset about it. The flip would be...
I will be a gracious winner.
Okay, well that's encouraging. But the system itself, I think there can't be anyone on either side who's fair and honest about it, who says that the system is really working the way it worked in 2020. There are just so many things, so many irregularities, so many misplaced ballots that were found in the middle of the night and came in, and all of these stories that we're hearing are just incredible, plus the changing of the rules as you go along, plus the concept of putting the post office under in the hot seat to be able to deliver votes. And then you have these other ballot collection places where we saw in California where there's just a big box on the street that's filled with thousands of votes, and guys come in a van, with a little badge on their shirt, and they're loading them into bags and taking them away somewhere. It's just not a very clean process.
Not at all. And again, as I've said, Republicans are the law and order party. And you're going to see that as we proceed forward on trying to win this election. Democrats are all about power. They'll risk anything to maintain power. And rarely does that benefit the public. Republicans have been working for the average Joe Blow for a long time. Democrats claim it, but they don't demonstrate it. Example, in the first relief package, they delayed it, because they didn't want Trump to have a win. The second package, that still hasn't passed, was voted down by the Democrats weeks ago. The second relief package. That's just one example of many where the Democrats prefer or go for power. They've got to maintain that power, and they'll hurt Americans deeply, as they did with these relief packages, in order to maintain that power. Yet, the uneducated public voted for Democrats. And we're going to have a pretty hard road for the next 2 to 4 years.
Let's go back to the phones and say good morning. Welcome to the forum. Who's on the line?
Just listening in. I'm a Republican, conservative. I was just listening. You haven't talked about how the media played a role in this, and actually Twitter and Facebook and Section 230, how that needs to be taken care of, how they're playing with the First Amendment and shutting the president down and letting the Democrats just have their way with Twitter and Facebook. And then also, you haven't really talked about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that they're proposing. This goes the other way.
Yeah, let me describe the last item. The Democrats are putting together a list, a hit list, a blacklist of Republicans and other supporters of President Trump, and they want to indoctrinate them or worse in the future. And as to the media, I have a list of 6 items that caused the president to lose the election, or at least temporarily.
Or to not win in a landslide.
Yes, dude. So, if we want, we could go through those quickly. Do we have another caller?
No, let's see. Did we answer your question?
compete against them instead of Americans first.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's.
Thank you. Appreciate your call.
Yep, and the caller is exactly right on that last point.
You talked about the media. You haven't really mentioned it, and we're not talking about KMOG or local radio stations here, but the impact of the networks has been considerable. All of the information that came out about Hunter Biden in the week or so before the election and his nefarious dealings overseas, and the documentation, the witnesses that have come forward, and the computer that's been double-checked and triple-checked and said it's all authentic, and yet not a word of it was ever mentioned on ABC, CBS, NBC, certainly not CNN. You wouldn't expect that, or CNBC,
Here's what's going to happen.
MSNBC.
Any investigation into Joe Biden or his son over the Ukrainian or the Chinese dealings in the years of selling out to our country, that goes away. The investigations of the FBI agents that lied and did illegal activities over the Russian Gate, that goes away. You'll never see that proceed or any more prosecutions. That goes away. The media constantly showed their bias. They constantly lied about the president, and in many cases, knowingly and intentionally lied about something that was going on in the Trump administration. It's impossible. 93% of the media reporting was all negative when it came to President Trump. For 4 years. That's a hard uphill fight to get his message out. And then there's the big tech interference. Boy, I tell you, if we ever get Republican control of the Senate and the House, we need to do something about big tech, censoring views of Republicans and conservatives, not just President Trump, not at all. And
I have a friend who's a Republican congressman from Texas, and he got censured last week. He tweeted something about, the atrocities of the election. His name is Roger Williams, Congressman Roger Williams, and they shut him down. They cut that, turned his account off.
And with the Democratic administration coming in, you're going to see more and more of this authoritarian approach to controlling the public. And it starts with the loss of your First Amendment rights. There were constant allegations that President Trump was a racist. He's not a racist. He's not demonstrated that at all. And to prove that, President Trump, a Republican president, got the most minority vote of any president known in history. They came over to him. They wouldn't if he was a racist, would he? So more minorities voting for a Republican president in history. So those are some of the causes of the reasons why Biden is presently ahead in many states.
We'll take a break here on the Rim Country Forum. We invite your participation, 474-2427. We'll have more after this. It's the Rim Country Forum. It's a Republican Monday on November the 9th of 2020. Gary Morris is here along with Andy McKinney, both representatives of the Gila County Republican Party. And we're talking elections and politics and all sorts of things. You said President Trump is not a racist, and he attracted more minority voters to the Republican ticket than any other previous president. But maybe because he would probably agree that it's not a bad idea what the Mexicans do to have a picture and a thumbprint on a voter ID and have voter identification. And that's why I joked earlier that ideas like that, when you come out with an idea and you say, no, you need to have some kind of identification before you can walk in and cast a ballot, well, the pushback is, well, that means you're a racist. That's the put down.
That's what Democrats do. When they can't win an argument, they call you a racist. It's just that simple. If you don't go their way, you're a racist. That's just the way they are.
Or a Nazi racist.
Yeah.
Well, we we're in the campaign part of the election is over. Now we're in the lawsuit part of the campaign. We cannot do a recount until the votes have been certified in each of the individual 50 states. And recounts, I spoke to the caller about that a while ago. If the margin is extremely narrow, there will be an automatic recount generated. If it's a little bit wider but still close, there can be a recount demanded by either of the parties, paid for by the party.
Here in Arizona, it's less than 0.5% in order to key an automatic recount.
An automatic recount. And
In some states go up to 2%.
Yeah, I'm not sure where we are, but we're probably within that margin in Arizona. That's, we're at 8,000 votes or something?
We're at 16,000.
16,000, okay. If the courts determine that there's massive voter fraud, the courts can demand a new election. But we did have some success here in so far we've picked up 8 new Republican seats. There are another 10 in the House of Representatives. There are another 10 seats in play. So we're whittling into Pelosi's majority. We also flipped 3 state legislators, which is a pretty important thing in the coming year because this will be redistricting year. So that's a big deal. We've got 2 Senate races in Georgia that are going to be facing a runoff. I expect that we will win both of those, and we need to, because the Democrats have said that if they get the Senate, they're going to add another 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 justices, so that everything that they want will go through a Constitution. So, but we do have a...
Yeah, we have a call. Let's say good morning. Who's on the line?
I have a concern with even with a recount, with the fact that they wouldn't let the people watch in front of vote and compare signatures and so forth. The recount is just strictly counting the ballots and who voted for who. It doesn't even tell you who legally voted and who didn't legally vote. They may have dead bodies out there both voting, or they could have, like they say, ballots for Mars, for all I know, and they're still going to count them as a vote, and they're probably not even real votes. I'll hang up and listen.
There may be some validity to that, but the record keeping today exceeds what existed 20 years ago or the turn of the century. So there is a means to track where those systems exist. So there may be a way to identify the dead person that voted. But
And the dead person vote has gone entirely for Joe Biden.
yeah, let me give you a quote here. This is what Joe Biden said a few weeks ago at a conference. He wasn't wearing his mask at the time he said this, but this is a quote. He's on video. This is forwarding. We're in a situation where we've put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics. That's on video, straight out of the mouth of Joe Biden, and the media has buried it. You can still find it, but they buried it.
Well, he was probably running for the Senate. Good morning. Who's on the line? Welcome to the forum.
Caller, if they do this revote, was there any truth or validity to the people altering the ballots as they're being counted, or someone else throwing them in the trash? And what about the watermark ballots that we were hearing about?
Don't know about the watermark ballots, but it's possible. See, hate alters judgment and reality, and we've got systematic fraud going on, it appears, but we also have freelancers that are willing to, because of hate and lack of judgment, are willing to freelance and do things that nobody's told them to do. Example, postman dumping ballots in the creek. samples of what this gentleman described. That's still fraud. It may not be systematic. They were told to do it, but they hate the president so much they're willing to risk jail time to alter or destroy ballots.
Well, we'll put the caveat out there that this is an internet rumor, but the internet rumor shared with me by one of my neighbors is that President Trump, in anticipation of concerns about the election, particularly the mail-in ballots and whatnot, went to areas of the country, had Homeland Security go and watermark large numbers of ballots so that they could check them to see whether or not they came through the system as intended.
Yeah, that's,
Very hard to do.
yeah.
Extremely hard to do.
I don't put any credence in that particular aspect of this at all. I don't think that's true. But we do have instances where we know of where people who are not alive have voted. That has been determined. We have an instance where the Republicans were taken out of their oversight right to oversee the counting of the votes, were escorted from the room by armed guards, and then the neutral voter counters, the neutral vote counters, applauded as the armed guards took the Republicans from the room.
So-called neutral.
Yeah, there you are, thank you. So there is plenty of reason to think that that fraud has occurred. The courts have the ability to force a new election.
We have time for one more call. Good morning, who's on the line? Hello?
Yeah.
Are you still with us? No, maybe not. Okay.
And again, the Trump lawyers going into court today have more than 2,000 affidavits from workers within the count process and others that identify voter fraud. And it's growing. More and more people are coming forth.
Yes, absolutely. I'll tell you something right here in Gila County that absolutely disturbs me. When you do one of the vote from home ballots and you seal it up and you either put it in the mail or you take it down to voter headquarters, it has your party affiliation on the outside of the envelope.
Yeah.
Well, there's no reason for that to happen. And what has happened that we know has happened is workers within the post office department have seen those ballots and have disposed of them rather than carried on their duty, both as employees and as citizens, to hurry those ballots along. They've destroyed them.
Yeah.
And we know that that has happened as well.
It's a real simple fix too. In Florida, they have the party affiliation, but it's under the seal. So once you
It's
seal the
not a
envelope,
problem.
there it is. You know,
Yeah.
and it's on the inside, not on the outside. We got time. Let's try one more call, and we're gonna push it here. But good morning. Welcome to the program. What's your name? Good.
Dead people keep voting, and how can, when are they ever going to stop that? Don't they verify that? I mean, I was a poll worker, and I know what you have to do. You have to check in, and you have to verify their address and their birth date. I just don't understand that, how they're going to continue to do that. And as far as the illegal, yeah, I agree. They have to have some sort of an ID or proof that they're legal.
Okay. Sure, I can speak to that point, ma'am. When a fraudulent voter goes to the voting place, if his ID is not checked, he can vote. He can vote in someone else's name, and if the name of that person is a dead person, well, there you are. And it's all in the checking. And we spoke earlier about how the Democrat Party has been very crafty in trying to elect whoever it is in the state that oversees the voting process, as has happened right here in Arizona.
And it's a lot easier with a mail-in ballot, obviously, than it is if you're presenting yourself in person at the polls.
Absolutely. And in particular, as the authorities in Pennsylvania have said, no, there's no reason to check the voter's signature when you get a mail-in ballot. We just won't do it. And that's, that makes it pretty simple.
That's Andy McKinney. Gary Morris was here with us, Republican Party representative today, and we appreciate you listening to us. We want to thank our sponsors who have always been with us and make this program possible: Sunshine Cleaning and Restoration, Choice Auto and Truck, Pinnacle Propane, Hospitality Wireless, Dan Good Flooring, Dana Law Group, and Holiday Cruises and Tours. Stay tuned for the news, and after that, we'll have the Diner with Chuck in the Morning here on